So I'm about to do what's probably going to be my last upgrade to my Schwinn Taff. I think just about everything else is in place where I want it. I don't want to spend a whole lot of money. The bike is very rideable. It's doing great on the trails. There's some green type trails, some more beginner trails that I actually prefer to ride it just because it's a hardtail and it works absolutely great, you know, and those simpler trails it's no problem. So what I'm going to do today is change the mechanical brakes to some hydraulic brakes, and in this case I have the Hayes radar that I bought on Amazon. The whole set was, you can get it for $60. I paid $5 more so I could get a clamp that is a one-piece clamp, just so it looked a little smoother rather than a two-piece clamp. That's the only difference between the regular and the comp. So this is going to be pretty straightforward, so I'm going to skip a lot of the steps, but basically I'm going to, of course, remove this, remove that, get the cables out, remove the caliper, put the new one in. It's that simple. Then you have to adjust it. There's a lot of videos out there on how to adjust it. So one thing to notice is I'm using a 180 disc there, where the original one was a 160, so I did have to get an adapter. You can see it right there. One thing with adapters, and I mentioned it on the video where I'm changing out the fork, is that this is what's called a post mount. Most people know this, but there's a lot of beginners out there or people that are new to the sport that don't really know the difference between the mounts. But this is what you call a post mount. The original fork had an IS mount, or international standard, where it threads from the side, and actually the rear Hayes has an adapter for that type of mount, because a lot of frames in the rear will use that mount. In the case of the Taff, the rear mount is also a post mount. So the other thing to consider is I do have the original 160 in the rear, and if I just put my caliper straight on like this one is, you do not need an adapter, and that's set for 160. If you do put a 180 on the rear, then you'll have to get an adapter for a 180 on the rear. 160 does not need an adapter, so, and plus this is not an IS mount, it's a post mount. So I'm actually going to take that adapter that came with the caliper off, put the caliper straight on to the frame just like this one is, okay? So that's probably the two big things. And like I said, if you're using the original fork and you want a bigger caliper or disc in the front, you're gonna need that adapter in the front. These bolts are 5mm. So I have my 5mm, I have a 3mm for that bolt, that's a 5mm, and then I have a 2mm for the grips there on the handlebar. And then I also have little simple torque wrench to torque these at. I'll put the torque specs in the description because I don't know them off the top of my head. I believe this is 6 Newton meters, between 6 and 8 Newton meters. I'll put it in the description. So the way to adjust the rear, or the front or the rear brakes, the calipers, is leave the mounting bolts loose, go and press the lever, keep it pressed so that it's hugging the disc and it's centered. And once you keeping the lever depressed so that it's clamped on there, then tighten back and forth so you get even pressure, and tighten to the specs. When you let go, it should be centered. Sometimes you do have to make little manual adjustments, so you can loosen it and just tweak by looking at where the rotor meets the pads, and you might have to give it little tweaks, but once you set it, like they say, set it and forget it, you're done. Alright, so the brakes are installed. You have to admit that little details make the bike look good, so just going from the mechanical to the hydraulic brakes actually makes the bike just look nicer. Alright, bike's looking really good. I think all that's left is the Schwinn frame. The seat post, the clamp are original. The headset, that's one thing I'll probably get a sealed headset later.